Hey guys, it's Tim from the Hybrid Network, and due to the reception of the previous Spotlight episode, which was meant to be our last, the Spotlight has been renewed for a new season, so thank you guys for supporting the show. Though there's going to be a few change-ups here and there. The first, most obviously, you can see the change in our graphic for this week, and in our following weeks we'll have similar graphics as well. And you may even see some new faces, or hear some new voices as the case may be, as time goes on for the spotlight, and maybe even some topics outside of comic books in general. But for right now, let's take a look at storytelling. Specifically, the difference in storytelling between manga, or Japanese comics, and American comic books, or Western comics in general. And what I mean by this is the difference between the continuous nature of Western comics and the expectation that manga will always have a set beginning, middle, and end. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to this on both sides. There are self-contained stories in Western comics, obviously, and there are certain ongoing manga series in Japan, like Detective Conan, for example, but I'm talking more so about the expectations that people have usually between the two, that comics are typically an ongoing story that passes from writer to writer and artist to artist, and manga are a self-contained story that have one artist and writer throughout. And like with everything, there are ups and downs to both storytelling styles. For example, with Western storytelling styles of being continuous, it works more so like life. It's a series of ongoing events that affect your character in a variety of ways and change who you are over time, and it will have an end eventually, but it's not going to have a three-act structure to it. But the downside to this is that it can feel like a character's not progressing when there's no set endpoint, and they can always go back to previous points at any time. And you also have the issue of some events not being as important as others, and only certain runs being the ideal runs for characters who have these huge, long histories to them, which make people feel that maybe a more three-act structure self-contained story would be a better option. And on the flip side of this, you have manga, which, while may not always following a three-act structure to it, depending on the length of it, will always seem to have a set beginning, middle, and end that's usually planned at the start, or at the very least comes to that conclusion over time. This gives the benefit of being able to follow your character throughout a set period in their lives that develops them into the character who they are at the end, and you get to see that development over time. Every event is in some way important to them because it's all in one set story that's in a limited capacity. So at the very least, you can feel like you've been given resolution on this character and you've gotten to see them from their start until their end, or at least the point that the writer feels is the end of the development. But the downside to this is that expectation. Manga stories tend to get looked down upon if they get dragged out for too long. Take a look at how people look at Naruto over time, how they feel that it dragged on for too long. Or take a look at One Piece. It's only been going on since 1999, which is nothing when you compare it to most of the comic book characters we're familiar with. But at the same time, is there really going to be anything they can reveal One Piece is that's going to be in any way satisfying if you've been looking forward to that? Or let's look at the flip side of this. Like I said, manga tend to have a single writer and artist throughout the entirety of their run. They're pretty much all the brainchild of a single person, which has the benefit of being a single creator's vision and therefore not really getting diluted over time by writers who don't get the character. But at the same time, because it's a single person working on it, if it in any way gets delayed, it can also have an impact on your ability to be invested in the story over time. For example, Berserk, which very similarly to A Game of Thrones, had a huge delay issue over time. And let's face it, if you followed the story over time, you've probably heard the jokes about Guts being on the boat forever and him just now recently getting off of it. And this can create a problem of losing investment in the story over time because it took such a long time to get to the point that we're at, and even has the issue of if anything happens to the writer, the story just stops and there is no resolution. Which, if the story goes on for as long as it does, can become a serious risk if you want to be invested in the story and want to know where it ends up. But the question that I'm asking you is, which of these two writing styles is better? The ongoing story that can have multiple writers to work over time and build the character over time but has the chance of regressing, or the single writer style of having a self-contained story with a set beginning and end point, but has the issue of being dragged on for too long, not having a satisfactory resolution, or not having a resolution at all? Well, let us know in the comments, and until next time, this has been Tim from the Hybrid Network, signing off.